Oh, I'm sorry. All right, I have to move my ear.
Yeah, we just did. That's why we just needed an extra sound. Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Lucy just. I'm going to wait for Commissioner Abel to return. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. We are experiencing technical difficulties, but
We are.
yeah.
Got it under control.
Under control. We're back in action. Okay. Go again. Call to order the Finance Administration Committee on April 4th, 2023. It's approximately 10:12. I would like to acknowledge Commissioner Zylstra, who is online participating today.
Thank you, Commissioner Cosby. Appreciate that.
Yes. All right. And it looks like first item up is our public comments. Do we have public comments?
Hello, I'm Dina Arner, Holland Township. And as this is the Finance and Administration Committee, I'm wondering if this will be the time you finally address the elephant in the room regarding finance. How are you going to pay for all of the new spending that your actions since January 3rd now require? Are we taxpayers going to have to pay more in order to pay for severance pay for the perfectly capable administrator that you fired on your first day? Are we going to have to pay more taxes to pay for the additional help that our overqualified new administrator needed to do the same job that previous administrators did without that extra help? And are we going to be paying more taxes to pay for all the litigation, which you seem to be jumping into willy-nilly with your actions that any competent attorney would tell you are illegal and are just asking for lawsuits? when are you going to address how that is going to be paid for? Are we going to be paying more taxes? Or will you tell us specifically what programs you intend to cut to pay for your dream list of items that you want to have done? Do you intend to cut the physical and mental health care for the least of us in this community? Do you intend to cut the budget for the parks, which are a shining gem in this county and one of the reasons why we are a tourist draw? How do you intend to pay for this? Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion? No? Right. So,
Mr. Cosby,
yes.
do we need Zoustra's location?
Oh, should we put that? Yeah, sorry. Commissioner Zalstra, can you please share with us where you're located?
For sure. I am in Bryce Canyon, Utah. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay, so all of those in favor of approving the agenda for the Finance Administration Committee, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, approve the agenda. Next, we're moving on to the consent resolutions and the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion for approval of the minutes from March 7th, Finance and Administration Committee meeting?
So move.
Thank you. Is
Second.
there any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes from March 7th, 2023, please say aye. All those opposed? All right, we are moving on to agenda and action requests. All right, so item number 1 is statement of review.
So move.
You're on. Okay.
Second.
Support.
Go ahead, Kurt.
Excellent. That's right. Okay. Do we have any discussion? Seeing no discussion. Does this require a voice vote since it is financial? Can we just?
Do roll call to be safe.
Yep, we can
Last
do a
time
roll-
we did a unanimous vote on
Did
this one. The next one would be.
Just-
voice.
Do a
Okay,
voice.
great. So all those in favor of approving the statement of review for the months of February and March of 2023, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the motion passes. And item number 2 is accounts payable for February 27th through 2023 through March 24th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All right, and do we have discussion? No, seeing no discussion. Looks like we can go ahead with this. We should do a voice vote because it's for $19,613,366.78. So,
All right. Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey. Yes. Mrs. Minema,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel. Yes. Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Ms. Cosby.
yes.
Motion passes.
Right. Item number 3 is the county newsletter mailing. And do I have a suggested motion to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the contract with Holland Litho for the printing and mail preparation of Ottawa County newsletter for the next 4 editions at an approximate cost of $119,305.56.
So moved.
Second.
Do we have Shannon here for discussion?
I am here, Shannon Faulkner, Communications Manager. Good to be here today. So what you have in front of you is a 2-year contract for the mailed county newsletter. Hopefully received it in your mailbox past few years. Looks like this. We started this newsletter in 2021, really as a way to reach residents with another mode of communication. We rely heavily on digital media, but there is a segment of our population who's simply not engaged in that way. And so it was suggested by leaders at that time to start doing a printed newsletter. We mail it to all the residents in Ottawa County using a mailing service. Just some data that I was able to collect about communication, as well as a quick little unscientific survey about the newsletter. I'm going to go ahead and break the rules and pass a little something out for you. So Shannon, Jack, you start these that way. Thank you. Good way to work. So we do a citizen survey every 2 years, and we ask residents their awareness of county activities. And, interesting enough, I have so many metrics on how much we communicate in our community. And in fact, my role here at the county actually began in 2012, roughly 2012, 2014, progressively larger role with county communications. But yet 2016, we see that 69% of county residents reported a strong awareness of activity, and we still see that going down. We also ask if residents whether they believe more should be done or enough is being done to keep residents informed. And we see residents increasingly saying more should be done. Less are saying enough should be done. But nobody's saying too much is being done. We are doing more. When we look at what we're doing a lot more digital communication, which is those second two graphs. We see how many people are opening the emails we send. In fact, our engagement rate with our emails that we send through our Gov delivery system is about 75% compared to an industry standard of about 55%, according to the book of business of the email provider that we use. We see social media impressions still very high. It changes if you're familiar with social media and the dreaded algorithm. We don't have a lot of control over that, but we do our best to learn the tricks and secrets and try to break it. So regardless of that, we are still seeing great reach with over 2 million unique residents reached through those posts. And then on the opposite side, on the orange heading, is our citizen survey about the newsletter. This is the unscientific survey. I just want to, make sure that you're aware of that. The other side is a little bit more scientific, but this is just a convenient sample. Actually, I take that back. The top is the preferred source of information. So this is from the citizen survey. This is really surprising, and it's continued throughout 2016, 2018, 2021. When we did the survey, that most people prefer their information to come via mail from the county. So we ask a series of questions about where they receive county information, and then we follow up with where would you prefer to receive county information? And that top source remains mail over the course of the years. 26% prefer mail, followed by email, social media, and then the traditional media sources, TV, newspaper, and radio, and then the newsletter survey. So an overwhelming percent of those who responded to this survey, which was, I think we had about 350 respondents, 94% gave it a positive rating, and 92% felt more knowledgeable after receiving the newsletter. And I think importantly is those who took action as a result of the newsletter. We can inform people, but ultimately we want them to engage, whether it's reach out to us, visit our website, visit a park, enroll in a program that the parks offers, participate in a fundraising event like Walk for Warmth. And so we asked folks if they took action, and an overwhelming amount of people took action. And some of those took 3 or 4 actions as a result of the newsletter. So we are seeing some good benefits from that newsletter. And hopefully in the future, our citizen survey can even reflect in a more scientific way whether or not residents found value in that newsletter. because it doesn't come without expense, as you're seeing in front of you.
Commissioner Medema?
Morning. This is simply, and I wonder, and you might not have the answer to that, but the survey that was that done by mail, or was it done electronically?
About the newsletter,
Yes.
it was done electronically.
Okay,
Yes.
so I simply wonder
Sure.
if the mail would be even higher if it had been sent in the mail. So if there are those that were trying to get the news out by mail, a survey that's done electronically,
Sure.
I simply just wonder if it would be even higher, but again,
Absolutely.
anyway, just a wonder.
It was definitely a quick survey we wanted to do with no cost. It was, I think, 3 questions. We posted it in the Administrator's Digest, so it went out via email, and then we also had it some social media platforms as well. But yeah, not scientific.
Are there questions? Commissioner Brody?
Just one question. Do you know what the cost was for the last 2 mailings?
I do. So winter 2022, the cost of the printing and mail prep was $27,851 or $52 rather. Summer 2022 was $26,999.
Okay. And what was it the year prior?
Winter 2021 was 22,800. It's definitely creeped up, especially that 2021, 2022, there have been some increased costs in commodities like paper pulp and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Are there other questions?
Yes, is kind of
Sure,
on the,
lots
on
of
the
data
survey,
there.
yes, I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna, how many responded? Do you have a total number of how many
So-
responded to the survey?
I do. For the citizen survey, which is the 2 top graphs on both sides of your paper, that is a survey of 400 residents who voted in one of the previous 2 elections, either August or November election. The metrics with the gray heading, that's just simply numbers. So those are just metrics that we gather from our insights from social media, as well as our email open rates, that sort of thing. And then the survey with the green heading that says Ottawa County Newsletter Survey, there were 350 individuals who responded to that. A convenient sample, not a random sample. The citizen survey is a random phone sample of registered voters who participate in elections.
Any further questions? Sorry. Yes, Mr.
Thank you,
Gibbs.
Commissioner Cosby. Shannon, first of all, thank you for this information and thank you for what you have in the packet here. To summarize, it looks like what we'd be paying here, the total cost here is listed, of course, is 119,000, but that's not a terribly larger amount than what we paid previously. It looks like there is a little bit of an increase because of the increase in supplies for the printers. But it looks like it's roughly what, 5 to 10% higher than what we've done for the past.
It is,
several
it's 7% higher than the last edition. That price would be fixed for the next 2 editions. So the summer and winter, that would be fixed. So we'd see a 7%, a 0% increase. Then prior to the next edition, Holland Litho could come to us and request an increase, but they have to legitimize that based on commodities like pulp or ink. We have the authority then to, kind of decide whether we want to take that or, negotiate a different rate. And then that again would be fixed for the next edition. And maybe there would be no increase.
And also, I'd just like to say thank you, Shannon, overall for the work that you do.
Thank you.
Coming in here, it's just been a great help to have you be in charge of the newsletters and making sure the social media and everything is being run correctly. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I very much enjoy making sure our residents are informed.
You do a wonderful job, especially with the graphics too, that you provide for some of these presentations. This was a very thorough packet, by the way. Every question I had, I found. So I
Thank you.
really appreciate that.
And a big thank you to Karen, Eric, Charters and purchasing team. They really do a lot of work when it comes to putting these RFPs together for us. We were bidding these newsletters out every edition prior to bringing this RFP to you today.
Wow. Nice to have it to you.
It's a win-win.
Yeah, right. Any other questions?
I would just
Mr.
jump
Donovan?
in. Yes, thank you. The last pie chart there says took action as a result of the newsletter. Maybe in future, a question could be asked, what type of action? Because I'd like to know.
I
good.
did. I'll give you those more detailed results. For the purpose of this graph, I just put the number of actions taken. Off the cuff, let's see, I don't think I have it listed, but contact a board member, visit our website, enrolled in a park program, visited a county park. Oh, there's a handful of other, and then I had an open-ended other, and they could fill it in as well. So one of the funny things that I found with that too is that even, I think there were maybe roughly 20 people that rated the newsletter negatively. And of those 20 people, 11 of them still took an action. I'm a big fan of, apathy is actually our biggest enemy in government. So.
Wonderful. Any further questions? Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
So I go to a roll call vote.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mrs. Menema,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel,
Yes.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Ms. Cosby.
Yes,
Motion passes.
wonderful. Moving on to action item number 4, County of Ottawa Financial Report from Bredeveld Hafner LLC. Motion to receive information and forward to the Board of Commissioners, the comprehensive annual financial report of the County of Ottawa. You just want me to end? That's fine.
Second.
I just want to make sure it's on record. Excellent.
Support.
All right.
Good morning.
Hafner, yeah.
Karen Karasinski, Fiscal Services Director. This is a requirement, but that we have an annual audit. We have a contract with an auditing firm, an independent audit firm, Bredeveld Hafner. Peter Hafner is here today to present to you. I just wanted to take a minute to share a few items. This report is posted, provided we submit it to the state of Michigan. It is on our website. We are also required to put it on EMMA, which is our communication to our bondholders. So they can keep status of our financial position. The report we annually file with Government Finance Officers Association for the achievement and excellence in financial reporting. This has been a long-standing filing and award that the county has taken. I think it's been well above 35 years that we have received this award. I'd like to thank the Fiscal Services Department for coordinating this effort, with a particular shout out to Ann Sullivan. She is our accounting manager and really coordinates the effort and the audit, along with Myra Ocasio, the Assistant Fiscal Services Director, play a big part in coordinating. But really, it's a major initiative for the Fiscal Services Department, and it's really all hands on deck. There is not a staff in our office that doesn't participate in some way. I'll introduce Peter. He is our partner in charge of the audit, and he's going to review some of the information with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I'm going to attempt to take you on a whirlwind tour of the document itself, because we provide opinions on various aspects of the information provided. This is not as an audit of a business where we say a specific operation is appropriate. We talk about many of your operations. So if you would allow me to try and walk you through some of the components of the report itself, I think it'll help you understand our opinion and help you understand the various funds being utilized by the county. So if you would turn with me, and I'm going to try to keep my notes and turn with you, but I would ask you to turn to page 18. So on page 18 of the financial statements, we have what I would refer to as the governmental fund balance sheet. And I just wanted you to understand the various components that we're going to provide an opinion on. So here we look at your governmental funds. The governmental columns, or the columns that you see here: general fund, community mental health, American Rescue Plan, building authority, that's the new construction project out front, and then all other, these are referred to as your governmental funds. They follow the modified accrual basis of accounting. That is not the basis of accounting followed by a business. It is referred to as the flow of current financial resources. So when you buy a truck, on these financial statements, it will show up as an expenditure. When you issue bonds, it'll show up as an inflow. On the following 2 pages following, you can see the dollars flowing in and out. That's page 20 of the financial statements. So you can see the general fund revenues on page 20 are $90 million. The expenditures, $46 million. And then there are transfers out. And following those transfers out, in the case of the building authority, you'll see $27 million flowing in. That's the issuance of bonds. A business typically would show a liability for those bonds. In the case of your governmental funds, those are just shown as an inflow of financial resources. And when you construct the building, that's an outflow of financial resources. So these are your governmental funds, and that all other column. So there's a non-major governmental funds component. And if you take a look at page 121 through 124, these are the smaller governmental funds. So 121 through 124. Here, each of the non-major governmental funds are displayed. And so the county is using 5 governmental funds: the general fund, special revenue funds, where resources, revenues that are legally restricted for a specific purpose are reported; capital projects funds, dollars that are set aside for capital projects; debt service funds, those dollars that are set aside to repay bonds on the pension, bonds for the buildings. Those governmental funds continue to follow the modified accrual basis of accounting. I just want you to be aware of these non-majors roll up to the front of the report. The total column is that non-major component. So we're giving you an opinion on the major fund and then the non-major in total. If you would turn with me to page 22. So we're going back up to the fund of financial statements. And we're going to look at your proprietary funds. So proprietary funds, they follow the accrual basis of accounting just as a business does. So in this case, we're looking at the dollars from the full accrual basis of accounting. You have 2 types of proprietary funds. There are only 2 types of proprietary funds. The first column is your delinquent tax fund. That's what's referred to as an enterprise fund, self-supporting. The customers are external. The second column, we have your internal service funds. Self-supporting operation, a cost center where you accumulate expenses and revenues that offset those expenses, and the customer is the county itself. So this is where we account for your insurance operations, multiple components, and your insurance authority as well. So if you were to take a look at pages 147 through 149, this is where each of your internal service fund is displayed. And these internal service funds provide operations exclusively to your governmental funds. So for instance, if you have an employee that works in the general fund in fiscal services, their insurance would be paid to one of these, their insurance costs would be paid to one of these internal service funds, which would go out and purchase the insurance. And in the case of self-insuring, you pay into the internal service funds and you pay the claims yourself with reinsurance in place. So these operations are really just a cost center, accumulating costs and distributing those costs to the general fund, to the CMH fund for their staff, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. In addition, I'm going to ask you to turn back to the front. We're almost to the point when I can share our opinions, but if you would turn to page 26. So we've talked about your governmental funds. We've talked about your proprietary funds, which include the enterprise fund, which is a business type activity. Page 26 are your fiduciary funds. So the first column is your other post-employment benefit trust. That is where you are funding the healthcare benefits of your retirees that have that benefit, that were awarded that or bargained for that benefit in the past. So this is the dollar set aside to make future payments for those retirees. And the second column are referred to as custodial funds. There's a schedule in the back that shows, I believe it's 4 custodial funds. This is where you collect property taxes from the local units, distribute those property taxes to the state of Michigan, or hold dollars on the behalf of others. These fiduciary activities are you acting in a fiduciary capacity for someone else. You're holding those dollars for your employees' retirement or for other governmental entities. So we've talked about your governmental activities, your proprietary fund activities, and here are your fiduciary fund activities. I wanted to point out one more component, if I may. If we can take a look at page 28. Page 28 is a combining statement of net position, full accrual perspective of entities that are controlled by the county. So here we have the Ottawa County Road Commission, Central Dispatch Authority, Public Utilities, Water Resource Commission. Those 4 entities for which the county is considered to be financially accountable receive a separate audit. And the first 3 have a separate system of internal controls, separate accounting system even. The Land Bank, the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, and the Economic Development Corporation, those entities do not receive a separate audit. They're substantially smaller than those that do. And in the case of those 3 entities, the accounting is performed by the county, runs through your system of internal controls, just to give you a little perspective. Okay, I'm going to make it just a little more complicated. This year, you received and expended $44 million of federal financial assistance. That's displayed on page 188 of this document. Each of the grants that was received by the county is displayed, and then the amount of expenditures of the grant. In the case of ARPA, the expenditures reported are equal with the revenue that was earned in that year. There are ARPA dollars that have been received that are in cash, and the other side of that entry was unearned revenue. Those dollars will be reflected as revenue when you expend them. So it's a matching principle. Okay, so we have this schedule of expenditure of federal awards, vast different grants that are being operated by the county. And now I'm going to have you turn back to the front of the report, just this last time, and then we'll work our way back to the back. If you would turn with me to page 14. So I'm going to repeat myself. I've talked about your governmental funds, your enterprise and proprietary funds, your fiduciary funds, the component units, which are those entities that you control. On page 18, we're going to talk about your governmental activities. This column represents all of your governmental funds and the internal service funds that just service the governmental funds on the full accrual basis of the county. The fixed assets are added back, the long-term liabilities are added back, and this is looking at things in a very consolidated way. Basically taking all of those governmental funds, smushing them into a column with your internal service funds, adding full accrual perspective and calling it our governmental activities. The second column, referred to as business type activities, that is your single enterprise fund, and that is your delinquent tax collection fund. So this statement of net position, referred to as a government-wide financial statement, and the following page, the statement of activities, again referred to as a governmental. Oh, I would say turn 2 pages to 16. Also, the statement of activity also referred to as a government-wide financial statement accompany the fund statements. Throughout the year, you're just concerned with what's going on in the fund. General fund, capital projects fund, CMH fund, et cetera, et cetera. These statements at the front are smushing all that data together. So I tried to give you a lay of what's where. Now let me give you what our opinions are. So our opinion is on page 1 of the financial statements. It's 3 pages long. Therefore, I will not read the entire thing to you. But the second paragraph, I'm going to summarize to you. It's our opinion as independent certified public accountants working with the county. It's our opinion that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects, the financial position, the results of operations, the cash flows where applicable of your governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund. So they're each column in the front of the report, the aggregate remaining funds, all the non-major funds, as well as the aggregate component units, the total of the component units in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And so that's what I would refer to as a clean opinion. You are following the standards that are promulgated by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, required by the Michigan Department of Treasury. In addition to the financial statements, we also, our opinion covers the notes to the financial statements. It does not cover the letter of transmittal, which is basically a history of the county and where you're going. Also, our opinion is not on the statistical section, which is indexed on here, and it's a great place to look for data because it covers 10 years and things that we don't actually audit, like who's the biggest employer or things of that nature. But our opinion is on the financial statements, the notes to the financial statements, and then we provide an opinion on those non-major financial statements in relation to the tables. I'm getting a little wild here in the front of the report. In addition to our opinion on the financial statements is what I would refer to as a clean opinion. It's actually referred to as an unmodified opinion. We also provide an opinion on your system of internal controls over financial reporting and an opinion on your compliance with federal grant requirements. Now, those opinions are on pages 178 and 180. So the opinion on governmental auditing standards and the opinion on compliance with grant requirements are only required when you have what is referred to as a single audit or a compliance audit, and you're required to have such a thing when you expend over $750,000 in federal financial assistance. You spent $44 million. Bingo, you have to have these two things occur. Your audit has to be performed in accordance with government auditing standards, and you have to have a compliance audit. Our opinion on page 78 on your system of internal controls, I would refer to it as a boilerplate opinion, but we did identify one material weakness, and that was in the calculation of some technical, the review of the calculation of some pretty technical calculations, and we've talked to management about that. Our second opinion that we have on page 180 is your compliance with federal grant requirements. In that case, we did not identify any material weaknesses, any significant deficiencies in your system of internal controls with compliance. So your monitoring and making sure you were complying with grant requirements there was a process in place, it was documented, and it was being followed per our testing. And we don't look at every transaction by any means. So if we take a look, I'm going to ask you to go to the very back of the report to where it says single audit. Just one more time, I can repeat myself. If you take a look at page 192, this is a summary of results for the entire county audit. And at the top, it says unmodified opinion on the financial statements. We identified within your system of internal controls a material weakness. Federal award compliance, no issues identified. We audited the American Rescue Plan Act grant. We also audited the Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinics grant. And we were required to cover 20% of your federal financial assistance. I think we probably, with the grants that we looked at, we probably covered 75 or 80 because ARPA was so enormous, might be even more. And at the bottom, we identify what the finding is that we are indicating at the top, and then management's response being provided there. In addition to the opinions and the financial statements, we also provide communications to this board as an audit committee. And I would refer to it as boilerplate. And at the bottom, we did identify one item that was we brought to your attention related to community mental health classification of clients and a review of that process for classification. And I know that there's been staffing issues when people were off for COVID or actually left and you couldn't find new people or things of that nature. But we didn't identify that within the audit itself. I do want to point out your staff prepares this the entire document. I have 3 clients that actually do that, and I probably work with 50. So it's quite a technical challenge, and it's quite a process. This is very, there's $200 million worth of expenditures and nearly 200 pages of information here that they pulled together. So quite a project on their behalf, and a pleasure to work with your folks. They do what, if we're asking for something, they provide it. So the process works quite well. We appreciate the opportunity to work with them. And a lot of information here, but I'd be happy to try and answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Bonema?
Thank you for the report today.
Sure.
How many years have you been doing this for the county?
I've worked on the county. We proposed on the county audit. I believe this is year 4 or 5, and that's the second increment. So that would be 9 years.
9 years. Okay.
Prior to that, I did not work on your audit. I worked at another firm that performed your audit, but that was going quite a ways back. So, but from the firm I'm with, and I'm a partner with, this would be year 9, and I believe next year is 10, and they were 2 5-year bids.
Great. And I appreciate that you're finding some things to help us, continue to work towards. When you do find something like this, it sounds like you make it available to the staff to address. At that point, is your work complete, or do you follow up throughout the year to make sure that those items have been worked through and resolved?
Sure. So during the audit process, we come up with more than is on the list here. But mostly they're not important at your level. So, and then we bring these to the management's attention. They have input, and sometimes we change things of that nature. During the year, we don't look at them. But when we come back for the next audit, we do, and we'll actually report the results in the case of that material weakness. And the federal government wants to know about it. This information on page 192 goes to the federal government along with a list of every dollar you spent of theirs. So we do follow up. And if we weren't your auditor next year, they would have to follow up on these in the audit. They would not have to follow up on this, but we typically do, because if you don't take action, we want to understand why. What are the implications on the procedures we perform in the audit?
Great. I just wanted to understand that follow through to make sure that the issues had been resolved. Have we had any issues in the past 9 years where there is carryover issues year after year that
Not
were
typically.
troublesome?
We have found material weaknesses and issues in the past. And sometimes the issue is there's a new standard coming and it's going to be a lot of work for you guys. You're going to need to take some action. Or you're going to have to bring someone in to address it. But historically, you've always taken action when there is an issue. And sometimes things kind of, it's a change in the staffing or a change in your philosophy that results in us observing something that's different, or this used to be reviewed by someone and this year it wasn't, so we'll bring it to your attention. But typically, they're always addressed, not in Ottawa County, but not at all, Michael.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Yes. Are there?
Other
More
questions?
questions?
Commissioner Bergman?
Just a comment, Peter, you and I go way back, so I just always appreciate the fact that you come here and that we can rely on what you're telling us in terms of Karen's department and the accuracy with which they're working, and just a stamp of approval for what's happening in our county. And so I really appreciate that over the years that you've been able to do that for us. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I appreciate that. And integrity is what, that's what we have. That's so we appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Curran?
Thank you. First of all, I wanted to thank you and thank Karen and your team. I mean, you guys do an amazing job and I really appreciated the whirlwind tour. It was quite exciting. I did have one quick question. You really did answer a lot of my questions when you went through your tour, so I really do appreciate that. But on page 14, this is just, it says you kind of went over the headers at the top, but you did not mention component units.
Yes, yes, sure.
What is that?
So let's just, so we have your governmental activities, your business type activities. Virtually everything is in the governmental activities. The
Right.
component units, if we can turn back to page 128. It is the total of the road commission, the public utilities, the central dispatch.
Okay.
So we are providing an opinion on this total, as well as that combining statement where you see the detail of it.
Gotcha. All right.
So it should be exactly those numbers.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're
That-
welcome.
That helps.
Yes, yes. I wanted to just point out, I'm going to attend your regular commission meeting. And I was thinking that I would just briefly talk about the fact that I met with this group and that you had three opinions that we could discuss and call that good. Is that sufficient or too basic? I think a lot of people are here already, so.
Yeah. Absolutely. You don't have to go through the tour again.
Yes. But hopefully that was helpful because there is just a tremendous amount of data.
Very helpful.
Absolutely. He's taking notes as we went.
Yeah. If not, tell these folks and they'll tell me next time. Don't do that.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Nope.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and go to a vote here to receive the information and forward to the Board of Commissioners comprehensive annual financial report of the County of Ottawa for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2022. All those in favor, we're going to roll call, or
You can do
a lot of-
whatever way you want.
let's roll call vote this one. Okay.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mrs. Minema,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Ms. Cosby.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 5, action item 5 is local government retirement systems annual report. Form 5572. Do I have a motion to receive and forward to the Board of Commissioners?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Hi, Karen. Have discussion?
So this is an annual report of our pension liability and our OPEB. OPEB stands for other post-employment benefits, which is retiree healthcare. The state has established the criteria in which you use to calculate your liability and report it, and they do it statewide, so they can look at systems and funding statewide. The county under the state criteria is funded for the pension at 73%. The state also has a requirement if you, the retirement less than 60%, and if the actuarial determined contribution is greater than 10% of fund revenues, they would consider you at risk. And so you would have to take additional steps. So when they look at this uniformly across all entities of government, that is how they review the document. So ours is at 73, and our retiree healthcare was at 178 based on the state's criteria. And so 178% funded. It's really overfunded slightly. It fluctuates with results with investment returns. So I'll just mention that in the financial report that you just received as well, our funding level, as we reported in our financial statements, is 83% funded for our pension and 176% funded in our retiree healthcare. So the MERS defined benefit plan uses criteria or assumptions that are a little bit more forgiving than the states. So we're a little higher funded as we report in our financial report. Our retiree healthcare, we are very conservative in our estimates. And when we look at that, we are actually funded better at the state's criteria than at what we use in our own calculations with our actuaries. So this is a form that needs to be filed and posted on the website, and it just needs to be received and filed by the Board of Commissioners in compliance with that Public Act of 2017. So this is an annual submission.
Thank you. You have any discussion, any questions? Seeing none, this feels like when we can go ahead and take a voice vote here. So thank you, Karen. So all of those in favor to receive and forward to the Board of Commissioners, the Local Government Retirement System Annual Report required by Public Act 202 of 2017, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Yay, moving on to foam trailer, action item number 6. Made him sit for a while here. So suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners a request to fund the foam firefighting trailers from Hazardous Materials Technical Rescue Team operating budget, in which the county would pay 50% of the cost, or $125,000.
So moved.
Support.
Right, and we have discussion. Hi, Sheriff Kemker.
Hello again.
Hello again.
I'll forewarn you, you're going to see me some more after your agenda here down the line. So the foam trailers, again, many of you probably know that the HazMat team falls under emergency management and under the sheriff's office. And it's kind of the problem statement if you read it there. We've really been without a method of extinguishing chemical fires for way too long. As you know, PFAS was removed several years ago from use due to the hazards of PFAS. And lately, watching the news, you're probably well aware of chemical fires and how they have to be extinguished. Water cannot do the job. It is amazing. Again, I'm on the law enforcement spectrum here, but when you get into the fire side of things, to see what really goes through Ottawa County on a daily basis, either by rail, right through the middle of our communities, same down our highways. Some of our facilities here, numerous facilities throughout Ottawa County that contain a lot of chemicals. And again, it needs a specialized equipment to put that fire out. or disperse that. So I'm not going to pretend that I'm the expert in this. I've asked Chief Jim Colzo from the Holland Township Fire Department to be here. Several other chiefs were invited, but I think there's this thing called spring break week right now. So we're lacking some people. But Chief Colzo, I'm going to ask him to say just a few words on the phone.
Thank you.
Sure. Good morning. As
Morning.
Sheriff said, my name is Jim Colson, Fire Chief of Holland Township. And yeah, we identified that we had a gap and we needed to identify or address that gap. So I was asked the Ottawa County HazMat Tech Rescue Board to take a look at that. So we did and identify proper equipment that we would need for that in the foam. So we went through that process and completed that and submitted that information, obviously. So as you stated, there's a ton of items that cruise or that tour through Ottawa County on a regular basis, whether it be via the highways or the road system, with the road systems or with the rail systems and then fixed facilities that would need to be addressed. So this was brought before the fire chiefs, and in our March 21st meeting had unanimous support from the fire chiefs on that as well. So it is definitely something that we all identify and realize needs to be addressed. So thank you for taking a look at this. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to address that as well.
Well, thank you very much. It's 24 fire chiefs, correct, that agree?
21
yeah.
that agree on something, which is, that's impressive.
Amazing. A lot of leaders in one room, right? Yeah. So, and then also what I remember hearing from Lou, and then Fire Chief Tibbetts too, is that your emitters all work. So the equipment that you currently have will work with the trailers in this product. That was a concern.
That is correct. This product will work with the existing equipment that we have that is handheld and on some of the trucks as well.
Okay. And 3 designated locations in Ottawa?
Correct. We're looking at Ferrisburg, Holland Township, and Allendale. And that sets them up in strategic locations so that we have access to facilities, but also for the highways, which is a high incident area potential.
Extraordinary effort by your teams. Thank you for
Thank
that
you.
collaboration. Is there discussion? Since I've just had it all.
Yeah, if I can just throw in one side note, as we all know, PFAS is a hot topic and chemical wise that deemed hazardous. The new foam, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, is green. It's environmentally safe. And that was a question that was posed to us. Also, if the foam is used by a jurisdiction, I believe just about all of our chiefs do cost recovery. So they can gain the cost recovery to replace that foam.
I do have some documents too I can enter into that Lou gave me, and then also Chief Tibbetts regarding the foam. I can enter it into the public record for people's purview as well.
And Karen, I don't know if you want to touch on the finance part
How
of
we're
it.
going to finance it.
Yes, we've had a long-standing relationship with this team. The county funds 50% of the HazMat Tech Rescue budget, and the communities fund the other 50%. As we do it we prorate their billing by their SCV values. So smaller communities pay less, larger communities pay more. We work with the HazMat team, and so that is how this was proposed. Funding was laid out with that team. We have done a number of great things, and so this would be another collaboration.
Thank you so much for finding the funds. Any further discussion? All right, we'll go to vote.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mrs. Minema,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel. Yes. Ms. Cosby.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. And next item on the agenda, we're going to bundle, I do believe here, correct, Brian? Number 7, 8. And what was the other?
The last one is a committee report.
Report. Okay, great. So we're going to, Brian is with the Equalization Department. And so he's going to discuss with us. Oh, do we have a motion to bundle and 7, 8, and the report from Equalization?
So moved.
Support.
All right, now discussion.
You can vote individually on them, but I'll be presenting on them kind of as a package.
We can pause and vote. Or
That's just
do it all at the
Yep.
end.
Yep.
Okay.
So good morning, commissioners. This report that you have in front of you is really the culmination of my department's work over the past year. So it's really a privilege to present this to you today. There are two items that you will be voting on or voting in this committee and then bringing to the Board of Commissioners for final approval, and one that is simply a report that will be received for information. So two require a vote, one just for information.
All right.
Before I ask you to vote on it, I would kind of like to step back and explain how these numbers came to be. You might say, how did we get here in this process? So the process really starts almost a year ago, starting with last year's state equalized values of all of the properties in Ottawa County. Then my department spends the last year studying the market, right? And I reported on this in my February presentation about how my office studies the sales that happen. And then we come up with a target, you might say, of what the values should be in order to match the market. That is reported to the township and city assessors in what is called the tentative ratios and multipliers. And that is what is published in February, and again was included in my report in February that you saw. That's the target of where the assessors are trying to, that's where their values should be. The assessors then take our input and develop their opinions of value, and they report those values on a form which is called a 4037A. And that is very similar to the 4037C, which is the one that you'll be voting on. That shows the values that the assessor determined. So as not to place too much authority, you might say, on the assessor, the system of property taxes is set up so that there is a board of review appointed by the local municipalities boards that then can hear appeals from taxpayers who feel that for whatever reason, the value that the assessor came up with is inaccurate or unjust, or whatever reason they don't like the value. They can appeal that value to that board, which is made up of their friends and neighbors. And if they can convince their friends and neighbors that their value is inaccurate, then that board can lower that value. Those values are then reported on a 4037B, as in boy, showing the board of review values, and those are submitted to the county. If those values, as determined by the boards of review, are within 2% of the target value that my office determined, then we recommend that the values are equalized as assessed, which simply means from our perspective, they did their job. We studied the market, we set the value of we reflected the value of what the market is, and we found that they hit that target. I'm pleased to report this year that all of the assessors, all of the jurisdictions in Ottawa County have put their rolls within 2% of that target value, which simply means that I'm recommending to you that you equalize the values as they are assessed. So if they were not within 2%, and this has happened in the past where an assessor made an error and didn't hit that target, then I would be asking you to add value to those rolls, and that would be reported on the 4037C. As they all hit their target numbers this year, we simply equalize as assessed. So we're essentially saying I'm recommending to you that you accept the numbers as they were presented to us. So those are the two forms that I'm asking you to sign or to approve. The one is the 4037C, which is actually the item number 9 on the agenda. And item 8 on the agenda is the 4024, which is essentially a summary of those numbers. They're all essentially the same numbers, just you might say presented in a different way and need approval in a different way. And that is where I will pause and let you either ask questions or vote on it.
And our agenda changed a little bit, so it's 7 and 8 for these purposes. Is there discussion? Any questions? No questions? Okay, so we'll take these one at a time for a vote. And so, I'm sorry, we'll go ahead and vote to, or where am I? A vote for to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners, the 2023 Ottawa County Equalized Value to appoint the Equalization Director to represent Ottawa County at state equalization hearings. Can you do that?
So moved.
A second.
Okay, all right. We already had our discussion related to that. We kind of bundled. So go to a voice vote. So all those in favor
Aye.
and opposed? Right, the motion passes. Number 8 is 2023 Ottawa County Equalized Values, L4037C. Suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the 2023 Ottawa County Equalized Values from that form for each jurisdiction in the county. Do I have a
So moved.
motion? Support? Any
Support.
And so any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All of those in favor
Aye.
Aye.
and all those opposed? The motion is approved. Then we're going to allow you to do your report, which is under committee reports, the equalization report by Brian Busher.
Very good. And that report that is under committee reports is actually this document right here. It's a, I don't know, 70-page about report, which has a number of, you might say, trends of what the values are doing or have done over the past number of years. Administrator Gibbs had requested that I come up with a slide to kind of summarize what that is. So if at all possible, we're taking a slide and we're summarizing a 70-page report into one. If you could, as you're presenting that, maybe scroll down to the bottom as it will kind of show. There you go. At the very bottom line there, it kind of shows the 2023 equalized and taxable values. And it shows this chart shows the values as they have been since Proposal A of 1994, which set two different values, an assessed value and a taxable value. The taxable value only goes up by the rate of inflation, which is 5%. The state equalized value or county equalized value goes up by whatever it takes to match the market. And the reason I chose this slide to summarize that is it's showing not only what the total county equalized values have been over the last number of years, but it's also showing the benefit that the taxpayers are receiving from Proposal A. And if you look at the graph in the upper right-hand corner, showing that the gap, you might say, between the assessed and taxable values is now that 72% of those properties have a, you might say, that is the gap between assessed and taxable on average. Now, obviously, not every property is going to have that gap. But on average, that is the gap. So taxpayers are receiving a significant benefit from Proposal A. And again, you can see that in the total values. One of the other things I wanted to point out on this graph is that my office, and I'll say myself individually as an assessor, one of the common things that I hear when I share that values are going up, they always say, well, values never go down, right? And one of the things that I wanted to point out on this graph is that no, values did go down. Our office reflects what the market is doing. And you can see in there when the market crashed in the fall of 2008, the following years, it dropped for a number of years in a row there. Not just the assessed values, but the taxable values actually dropped. So that is the one slide that I think probably best summarizes the report. Slide number 2 on there, I put in simply as a point of interest, simply because it has been discussed so often. Well, in this committee and others, of the closing of the J.H. Campbell plant. And this is something that my office has been involved in over the last number of years, just simply in discussions in terms of value. And the reason I wanted to present this is if you go back 20 years, you can see the effects of that closing, what it would have had it closed 20 years ago. Now in Ottawa County, that one plant 20 years ago made up 3.19% of our taxable value. So that would have been a pretty big hit had it closed 20 years ago. Today, if it were to close and all of that value goes away, we're talking at right at 0.62%. It is a far less influential taxpayer than it was 20 years ago. Port Sheldon Township, of course, has a far greater impact on their budget if they close. But again, the reason I wanted to present this is because 20 years ago, it was over 50% of their budget. Today, it is 16.3%. Now, that's not to say that it's not a big part of their budget, but it's not over half like it was 20 years ago. 2000, I think it was actually 18, but it was retroactive. There was a settlement due to a MTT appeal that kind of set the values for the J.H. Campbell plant on a, I guess they like to call it a glide path down, right? Where these values have been dropping, which essentially I'm saying we've absorbed the hit of losing all of that taxable value for the last 6 or 7 years now.
The county has.
Well, both the county
and
the township and the schools and everybody who relies on that taxable value for revenue. The last thing that I wanted to share, not necessarily pertaining to anything particular in this report, but simply to make you aware of it, is a timeline conflict that moving the Finance Committee meeting up 1 week conflicts with the equalization calendar. And I'm bringing it up to you simply for information this year. And what I mean by that conflict is that the equalization calendar gives the local municipalities up until the first Wednesday in April to submit their rolls to the county, which means they actually have until tomorrow to give me their assessment rolls. Now, this year, I was able to convince them to submit their rolls early in order to present this report to you. But frankly, that is at the good graces of the assessors of the municipalities. I can't force them to submit it sooner. I say this simply to say it may be in future years that my report to the Finance Committee will be no report. So any questions?
Do you have recommendations for a fix? Conflict?
Well, obviously from the local municipalities, they have until the first Wednesday, so that there's nothing that we can do with that. I know other municipalities have simply removed it from being under the purview of the Finance Committee for that reason. State law does not require that I take it to finance. State law requires that it goes to the Board of Commissioner meeting, which of course is following. So one option would simply be that we remove it from the umbrella of finance. I don't really have any other options than that.
I'll take that into consideration.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any questions? No.
Okay,
Thank you for the report. All right. Moving on, we're going to action item number 9, Michigan Agricultural Preservation Fund Grant Agreement. Do I have a motion to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the grant agreement for Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development for $267,899?
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
All right. Their discussion? Seeing no discussion, can we go to a roll call vote?
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mrs. Minema,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Ms. Cosby.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Action item number 10 is a parcel cost share contract with USDA-NRCS. A motion to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners a parcel cost share contract with USDA-NRCS to secure federal farm bill funding for an agricultural easement. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
we have discussion? Being no discussion, we can just go ahead and do a voice vote on this. So all those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? The motion passes. All right, next is action item 11 is community mental health personnel request. Do I have a motion to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the request from Community Mental Health to add one mental health clinician, diversion liaison, Group T, pay grade 10, one recovery coach, Group T, pay grade 2, and one mental health specialist, community support, Group T, pay grade 8, at a total cost of $172,358 for fiscal year 2023, to be funded by Boundary Spanners Grant.
So moved.
Do we have support?
Second.
And do we have discussion? Hi, Lynn. Although. Forward for any questions. It looks like maybe Commissioner Meadema. Oh, you
sorry.
did. Okay. Anybody have questions? Do you want to tell us a little bit about Boundary Spanners? I think you did, just like briefly.
Yeah, I will. This is a grant through the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. It's called Boundary Spanners. The intent would be to help us develop a team that would coordinate and support services for justice involved or at-risk individuals with behavioral health concerns and substance use disorder. The team would help with diversion, stabilization, and integration of individuals re-entering the community with the long-term goal of reducing recidivism rates. And as you just mentioned, it includes 3 staff.
Perfect. And I think I asked you, how many people do you think propose that you may be seeing like on an annual basis?
We're projecting around 100 to 150 people. So it would be sort of a rolling number of folks we're involved with.
Annually?
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. And when do you think this program will be up and operational?
Well, once we get those positions posted, if this passes, it takes us about 2 months, 3 months to get people hired and up and running.
It's approximately 6 months or so.
I would say less than that, probably
than
3 or
6
4 months.
Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Commissioner Moss?
Sure, just clarity. This is some new activity to help with an area of unmet need. Am I understanding that?
Yeah, we don't currently have any staff dedicated to that reentry part of jail services.
Well, all right, thank you very much. So we'll take a roll call vote.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mrs. Evil,
Yes.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mrs. Meadema,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran, yes, Ms. Cosby,
Yes,
motion passes.
thank you. All right, item number 12 is Sheriff's Office personnel request. Do I have a motion to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners a proposal to add a road patrol deputy in position in Allendale Charter Township community policing contract for 100% funded by Allendale Charter Township?
So moved. Second.
Awesome. Alongside Chief Sheriff Kempker is here to discuss for any questions.
We have some speeders up there in Allendale.
Well, with the growth in Allendale, the Allendale board did approve this. Again, with the growth that we've seen in Allendale and the calls for service, this is above and beyond of the normal road patrol from the general fund that we can provide up there. Obviously, like I said, their growth, the campus area during times of the year while they're in session adds to a lot of our activity there also. So again, I commend the Allendale board, worked very well with the township supervisor and some other people in the township there. And we started to hear it also from the residents of Allendale. They've seen the increased activity. Traffic is always a common concern with any of our contracts and throughout the county. So again, it is 100% funded by the township.
Any questions? Commissioner Rhodey?
Just a comment. We appreciate this greatly. I know that just hearing from constituents in Allendale safety, is a big concern with some of the events that have happened over the past year. So very much appreciate this.
Yes, and again, throughout this time, Commissioner, we've had a lot of good support from the citizens there in the township also that have reached out. And, there's time that we did have to come in and kind of take care of business a little bit to quell some of the issues, and we were very successful at that.
Thank you.
Wonderful. I might just keep you standing here. We can quick call for a vote here and then we'll get to action item number 13. So since it's 100% funded, I think we can do this as a voice vote. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed? Right, the motion passes. Action item 13, Sheriff's Office personnel request again, and this one is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners to add 1 road patrol deputy position to partner contracts funded by Hudsonville Schools 33.5%, Georgetown Township 33.5%, and Ottawa County 33% per budget year at the initial cost of $27,778.74.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, questions from Sheriff Kemker?
Again, this is a school resource officer position, as we have elsewhere around the county. And historically, when we started the school resource officers program, we went into a unique contract situation where we divided it into thirds. So the school pays a third, the local jurisdiction that has that deputy during the time when school is not in session pays a third, and then the county picks up a third. It also gives us the availability for the county side to use that deputy also. Good example, snow days, days at the schools down for conferences or whatever. Those deputies then go out and patrol during the summer months. Again, they assist us in the general side, but they also will be working specifically in that Georgetown Township area, assisting with general calls for service right up to the community events that they do. School resource officers, Hudsonville did apply for the grant from the state of Michigan, but they were denied. They do have 1 school resource officer in place already, and a lot of those grants went off to school districts that did not have school resource officers. We also have another school district that has applied. They were denied. They are now working through what direction they would like to go. But again, Hudsonville, they see the value. We see the value in the school resource officers. It takes a load off from our road patrol because they're already at the school. They can work with issues. They do everything from mentoring. We have them, some of them are coaching after school. So it's just been a great relationship with the schools, and that partnership and that collaborative effort as we've seen the payoffs with school resource officers.
Question about that.
Commissioner Bama.
I've always enjoyed my relationship with the school resource officers that have been in the Zeeland Public Schools. When they're working, are they also looking at ways to harden up the security to keep our students safe on campus?
Yes, I really do have to commend our school systems. They are constantly looking at the security. A lot of them are doing construction projects, and when they do those, they do incorporate us. And they also look to the architectures and the engineers when they do that. The Ottawa Intermediate School District has a security director. They've been working on programs. We train in the schools for active shooter events. We train with the teachers. We train with our staff. So again, yeah, that whole world of school safety, we're very well involved in many others. And again, I commend all of our school districts for the steps that they've taken to help keep our children safe.
Wonderful. Good question. And Commissioner Miedema.
Morning again, Sheriff Kemker. Just a technical question.
Yeah.
I noticed on the motion, it says road patrol deputy position, and then the summary request talks about the school resource community policing deputy. Is it just how the language is used?
That's
Does it
how the
fall
language-
under
yeah,
road
yeah,
deputy?
everybody's a road patrol deputy.
Okay.
And then they've got their specific areas of like school resource officer. Under a lot of the contracts, when they go to the township, we refer to them as the community policing officer because they may be assigned specific tasks or functions within that township along with their road patrol duties.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we'll go to a roll call vote.
Mrs. Ebel? Yes. Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mrs. Medema?
Yes.
Mrs. Curran? Yes. Mrs. Rhodey?
Yes.
Mr. Belknap?
Yes.
Mr. Bonema?
Yes.
Mr. Bergman?
Yes.
Ms. Cosby?
Yes,
Motion passes.
wonderful.
Great, thank you. And also on behalf of the sheriff's office, we'd like to thank you also for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to action item number 14 is the fiscal year 2023 budget adjustments. And the motion to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the 2023 budget adjustments per attached schedule.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Karen?
So there are a number of budget adjustments in place. I'll just make mention of, there was one that we've talked about, the third one down, 6309, the county initiatives. That was the ARPA task force recommendation that did not meet the ARPA guidelines. So we were, I'm sorry, the inflationary impact, sorry, that was the inflationary impact payment that we had estimated and then spent less. And so we're just correcting that by reducing the appropriation to what it needs to be. There is also the one below was the one that was not eligible for that grant funding. I know there was a question on the CCBHC, the very last budget adjustment. So I just wanted to clarify that that is the CCBHC grant. The funds were not expended last year. So they authorized us to carry them forward to spend on that program. We track that grant in a separate cost center in the CMH millage fund. Really, that's the CMH millage and grant fund. So we would separate it out within the fund so we could do the grant reporting, but it must be compliant with those grant guidelines.
Perfect. And Karen was kind enough to answer that question for me before the meeting. Is there any discussion? So, all right. So since it is a dollar item that we are approving dollars, can we go ahead and go to a roll call vote?
Yes. Mrs. Curran? Yes. Mr. Belknap?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey?
Yes.
Mrs. Medema?
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel? Yes. Mr. Bergman?
Yes.
Mr. Bonema?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Ms. Cosby?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. We are moving on to committee reports and we've already had the equalization report. So treasurer's financial month end by Amanda Price or
not.
Gerald Clark.
Cheryl. Hey, Cheryl.
Amanda is on vacation in Italy.
Oh, wow.
This is a vacation they were supposed to take 3 years ago and then COVID put an end to it.
Good for them.
So I am here to present on Amanda's behalf. You received in your packets her committee report, just an informational report. She wanted me to just kind of go over some things. So the first one was the pie chart, which is the open investments of the pooled cash accounts as of February 28. The bar chart lists the historical balances of the general fund or the general pooled cash over the course of the last 4 years, plus this fiscal year. And then the next chart was the interest yield chart. So it compares the actual 2023 yield on our portfolio with other market benchmarks. And then the last one was the investment distribution by maturity. You also have the OPEB trust statement as of 2/28. And then we also gave you what we do in our office quarterly is a bank ratings chart, and we send this out to townships, to their treasurers, to their finance directors, and anybody else who is interested in it. We put a lot of time into this report. There's a lot of factors that go into it. So For example, you can see in the report that there's an MACT analysis. That's the Michigan Association of County Treasurers. They put together an analysis for all of the county treasurers in Michigan to use to rate banks. And we use the call reports on each bank to come up with those ratings. Robinson Capital is in the second column. They are an independent investment advisor, and they provide all of the county treasurers in Michigan free ratings, alphabetical ratings on each bank. Then we also go out to the Bauer and Bankrate sites and find ratings on all of the banks that way. And we go to the FDIC to get the return on assets, the non-current loans to lease, and the core capital for all of the banks. And then we do short-term deposit credit ratings also. Last month, we supplied you with a chart which gave you a historical overview of the number of foreclosures that we've had. As of March 31st, we foreclosed on 14 properties, which was pretty good. We were a little concerned. We were in the 60s at the beginning of the month. So we did a lot of hard work contacting property owners. And then we wanted to also, I know that there have been some news articles about bank failures, and we weren't sure in our office if you would have any questions about that and how secure our funds are. According to Chair Powell of the Federal Reserve, the banking system is sound and resilient with strong capital and liquidity. Our own bank that we have is Huntington National Bank, and they have more insured deposits by any bank, 50 billion and above, with 68% of its deposits insured in a diverse array of accounts. It has 450,000 more business customers and 3 million more retail customers than Silicon Valley Bank did. Of the 4,500 regional banks in the United States, only 3 failed. So we have begun a transition of our CD investment strategy, which we purchase CDs to mature every 2 weeks, which coincides with payroll. We are now, when the CDs are maturing, we are cashing them in. And if we have funds available, we are now investing in treasuries because they are safer and they are backed by the full faith and credit of the government. Any questions?
Seeing none? Thank you very much. Nice to meet you, Cheryl.
Nice to meet you.
We'll have to ask Amanda about her trip.
Yes.
She recommends going. All right, so committee reports are complete. Next up is public comments.
I don't know, but Spring Lake, as I've said so many times, it's like beating a dead horse, but I do really like coming to these. I learned so many things about what is going on in the county. So I'd like to speak to just 3 of those observations that I had today. And the first is about the newsletter and about the communication efforts. It's great that we are able to afford to send them by mail. I understand people like looking at pictures somehow, you know, tactilely versus social media. But one observation I would make is that sometimes when we get excited about something, we are the best emissaries, right? For whatever it is we think is important. So just talk to people about it. Put things on your own social media. That's always a good way to kind of amplify the message as well. Plus, it helps people see why you are engaged, right? And I think that's good. About the international, I'm not going to get the name right, crisis aid for sex trafficking. Yes, I am not at all opposed to doing this, whatever resources we can put in place to help both curtail such sex trafficking activities here and strengthen the families that are impacted by that. I do get a little concerned sometimes when I hear things like, you know, it's family dissolution. That's not so much the problem, but that's worse than it's ever been. And I'm no social scientist, but sex trafficking has been around forever. And in my mind, maybe the fact that it's more prominent and in the news is largely because of internet delivery of things like pornographic materials and just online presence and lack of privacy issues. So I don't know, I just get a little squirmish about that when I hear those kinds of things said in the context of a really naughty issue like this that's been around for forever. And the third thing is relative to the resource officers in the schools. Again, I grew up in an era where that wasn't needed. And again, I'm not against any and all ways we can explore to keep our kids safe in school. But y'all, it's the guns. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments?
As if I had to say, my name is Dave Barnowski and I vote in Port Sheldon Township. And in this instance, giving you the benefit of the doubt, the young lady came in with a graphic, very informative document that she passed out late. And I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that it was just coincidence that it was late, and request that, Madam Chair, that you instruct your staff to attach a copy of it to the back of the packet for the public to see later. That's all.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Going once, going twice.
Commissioner
Oh,
Crosby?
Go ahead. Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah, hey,
Salza.
sorry about that. No, I had tried to get a comment during the agenda item.
Oh, I
Just
see.
on the, sorry, just on the newsletter. I know in the past we've had a committee of commissioners to select articles. I'm comfortable with having the communication manager select articles, but if we're going to do the same process, it's like to have a conversation next week about having a committee that kind of represents the diversity of the board and make sure that, articles in our newsletter are representative, of all the counties. So
Great, duly noted.
thank you.
Thank you. All right. So any more public comments? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.